Hi, I'm Victor Vogel. I want to take a few minutes and just talk about victorvogel.com and what I'm trying to do. Uh, I'm a retired business executive, and I've held probably every position in leadership you can think of, from shop floor supervisor up through CEO of my own company and everything in between. Uh, Over 40 years, I've also spent a lot of time coaching and developing leaders that work for me and that I consulted with, uh, building change in organizations. So whether I was transforming a full organization, or whether I was working on specific departments or specific teams, I worked with a lot of leaders and I helped a lot of leaders become more effective at their job. And I developed a lot of leaders who worked for me who've gone into significant positions later in life. And I've coached all the way from board members and CEOs all the way down to shop floor supervisors, and in some cases, employees looking on how to improve their relationship with leaders, which I found to be just as important as developing the leader. So I'm now retired. I've been retired 15, maybe 16 years. But I like that world, and I just kind of miss that. I don't want to retire from it. I was trying to figure out how to get involved again. Didn't particularly want to work for a corporation. Didn't want to jump back into the consulting world as it was known then, where I actually went into organizations and worked for them. It's a very pricey, very expensive thing for companies and leaders, for that matter. Uh, so I was trying to figure out, how can I take what I've got and what I did back then and put it in today's world where I can reach people and help them. And this format is obviously one of the things that I think is positive about technology. There's a lot I have a concern about, particularly in the social media realm. But this one, it offers, this is on the two-edged sword. This is the positive side that offers opportunity to provide something at an extremely lower cost and help people through time. Um, I don't want to just do it for free, because I found out when you start giving free advice, people don't necessarily consider it valuable, or they don't take it, or they take it for granted, or they just don't value it. So I've tried to price what I do on victorvogel.com simply so you're investing. Now, victorvogel.com, I've tried to figure this out. I am not an influencer by any stretch on social media. I am not a podcaster. I'm not an entertainer. I'm not going to capture your in the first 30 seconds of anything. I'll tell you that. I'm not real big about doing leadership development in that area. It's far more complicated than that, far more important than trying to condense something down to 15 or 20 seconds or some sort of meme, which is a new word since I've been living. All these new words keep popping up. Uh, but this is what I was trying to figure out. I was trying to figure out some of the things that I did, that I thought were important, that had the most impact on leaders that I could look back on. And I've probably developed hundreds of leaders, maybe worked with hundreds of leaders and thousands of employees in improving organizations. Uh, I was trying to figure out what in the world made the most difference, had the most positive impact, and I came up with two things. One of them was actual leadership development and some training aspects to that. Around two key areas that I found on every leadership assessment I did, that really people said they wish their leader was better at. And one of those was building trust. And so when I delved into, what do you mean by trust in these conversations, and part of my process was to assess through using specific valid instruments that I used over the years that I still think are valid, uh, and still effective to use. And but the other part was validating that, coming in behind those instruments and following up with what I learned from them, just talking to people, sitting across the table talking, not in an interview format, but in a help me understand this better kind of concept. And what I found were there's some dynamics about trust that were consistently there, that in organizations where leaders are trusted, where they were working well, where performance was well, and people were doing great, these things tended to be there. Um, it's a qualitative decision on my part, but they were there, and the results were there. So it's not hard to put those two together and say, yeah, this is important to have if you want to build trust. That's a couple of things I saw there. But the other thing that came out of talking about that trust was not just things like compassion. That was one of the elements that's absolutely critical in building trust. But how do you get that? I mean, we know what it is. I mean, psychologically, you can go read about it, uh, but how is that reflected? And then if it's reflected in a certain behavior, how do we get the behavior? And it all boiled down to communication. And that's on all my assessments, that's the other thing that was really at the top of the list of what people said they wanted their leaders to do more of, and that was communicate better. But nobody understood really what that meant when I said, well, start explaining to me what that means. And what it meant was we as a country have never taught people in an educational system how to communicate. It's kind of like on the job training all your life as you grow up. But we don't teach people, say K through 12. I ask a lot of people over the years, K through 12, have you ever had any communication training? They just look at me like I'm crazy. Well, I've had English. Well, yeah, you've had language and sentence structure and those kind of things, but you never really had what active listening is and the importance of that and how to make that work and persuading or communicating or developing a meaning. No one ever really explained the fact that the meaning of the message you're sending really rests in the mind of the receiver who's getting that message, not you and what you think they ought to hear and believe, but what they actually believe based on what they perceive you said. There is some differences, and there are a lot of things in communication that get in the way of that. Congruity is one of them. When somebody's behavior doesn't represent what their words say, like, yes, what the hell does that mean? But I'll tell you, 70% of the people over years and years and years of research, not just mine, but others, would tell you that no would be the answer to that question. They believe what they see more than what they hear. Now, so I kind of put a program together. So one of the things on victorvogel.com is a program called Building Trust Through Effective Communication. Okay. And I cover some of the things that I finally put together and used that was so successful, helping a lot of people improve that area of trust in the organization. And consequently, they became more effective leaders. So I put that together. I think I offered that up for, I said $10, and somebody said, no, you can't say 10 marketing. You got to say $9.90. So it's $9.99. Although I might still change it to 10 just because why? But so the deal here is I'm offering that up as a kind of webinar concept, but I hate to call it a webinar because it's a little more like a seminar. I'm presenting some material, I'm stating it, but I'm trying to present it in a way where I can stop, look at some chats, or if somebody has a question, they can raise their hand, however they do that on this technology, trying to look at that and then try to respond to that a little bit so that I'm dialoguing with that person for a minute about what that real issue is. That's kind of hard to do in this format, but if it got to be where it seemed like it might really be important for everybody to hear, could just pop you on with me and we could actually have a face-to-face discussion about it and then stop the program and move on. So when I say an hour and a half, it could be an hour and a half, it could be 2.5 hours, depending on how many of those interruptions and that interaction we get during the process. And so I don't know how well that's going to work. There's a lot of challenges to that, but I'm not worried about the challenge. I just want to start it and get it going. The other aspect of victorvogel.com is something that was very, very successful for me as a consultant and often worked as an executive when people worked for me or other people in the organization needed to come to me. And that was just basically a chat format. I know when I was a consultant, when I had a team building session, everything was going great. We got done. We go out and have a drink at a pub, or if it was an afternoon or morning session, we may have coffee before we started the next day session. With different employees at points in time would join me. And out of that came the concept of, that stuff you covered with us the other day. Yeah. And they said, well, this is really my problem here. And I'm not sure all of that fits like my problem. Okay. And we start talking and we just generally have a conversation about this person's problem. So it's kind of like a counseling session or a mentoring session, however you want to call that. And we really just talk about an issue and kind of bring what they were learning into the issue to see how it impacts them and how it can convert them or how they could use that to convert themselves. So it was that kind of stuff that was extremely powerful. I gathered a lot of information about an organization. It was not going to be picked up in a survey or even in the formal interviews where I sat across the table from them in the office. These were casual conversations, as if I were sitting at a bar having a drink and somebody walked up and we just kind of started chatting with each other and finding out where we work, like we always do, that impersonal communication stuff first, and then it moves on to the more personal stuff. And they start spewing out, they find out, hey, you're a consultant, you're a leadership consultant. Yeah, that's what I do. Boom, 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 boom. And then it comes out. And it's kind of like, okay, that they walk away with something. In that case, it was free. Now, whether they use it or not, I don't know. But that's kind of what I'm trying to do with the other part of victorvogel.com. I'm trying to create an environment where you can reach me. And again, I'm not a technology expert, so I don't know what the method I'm using is the best way or not. I don't have a whole lot of funds to go have somebody try to figure that out for me. And I'm not sure I want to. I just want people to have an ability to reach me. We can contact. You can decide whether I'm the kind of guy that can help you or not. And then we can move on. And if I am, then, maybe I'll solve that situation in our first session, just sitting there chatting. Or maybe it'll require something where you think you want to go further and do more chats. Or maybe it's a situation where if you're a boss, an executive, and you got a leader who has this problem, I can guide you through that process of helping that leader. So, may well be well worth the money considering it costs to hire a new leader. So those are the things that I have going. I have that one session. Actually, I have more than one. I've got 3 sessions up in events, but that's the one that deals with leadership. The other one is leading a remote team, and that's altogether different a format, or not a format, but a topic. It's a very important topic today because a lot of people have misconceptions about remote work. But that's a, either those programs are out there, and you can come sign up for them and just join me. There may be, I don't know, I think I have a couple of hundred top end that I can have in there for the program I'm on. Uh, but that's a little less personal than the one-on-one that I'm talking about for the other part of victorvogel.com, where we actually have an hour where we're sitting here just chatting and talking. And sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it goes longer than an hour. I don't know. I'm not going to hold it to just an hour. For it's a per session cost, and so however you want to figure it, sometimes it's a little less, sometimes it's more. But the idea is you get a chance to just relate. And why is that important? Because I don't have any influence. I mean, I'm not rating your performance. I'm not reporting my data to another business executive about your performance. It is really what I call the ultimate third party kind of thing, where I don't have any investment in you being successful. I mean, it's all about really just being able to help you, and how important that is to me in my career. It's something I've derived a tremendous amount of benefit from. It's extremely difficult profession, by the way. You can't learn to be a leader in 5 easy tips to be a leader. I'm sorry, it just doesn't work that way. But if you can find those 5 tips, that's fine. But when you read your next post on LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever, there's going to be 5 others, and that's going to be 10, and then it gets up to 30 real quick. So the idea here is just to use my experience, my knowledge, my ability that I had over the years. And if what you're hearing is not, setting well with you, you're not going to ever talk to me again. If it is, you're probably going to want to spend some more time with me, or at least use me as that bouncing off kind of person. So that's what this is all about. You can reach me at victorvogel.com. I am on LinkedIn. I operate under the Chat with Vic brand. So, you can reach me at victorvogel.com, and on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, not on Twitter, thank God. That's about it. I don't go on the most popular, highly influential TikTok and all those other things. I really am trying to stay within the realm of where I know I feel comfortable professional people are delving, and people need help. And then they feel comfortable going to somebody on those sites. And so LinkedIn is the primary site. Facebook is another. On there, it's Chat with Vic. So it's facebook.com/Chat with Vic. Instagram is tied to that, so it's the same thing. But I'm not hard to reach. I mean, you can reach me through the LinkedIn emails, contractwithvic.com or at gmail.com. You can reach me in a lot of different ways if you're interested. I don't know whether this is even going to work or not. I'm just throwing myself out there. Like I said, I'm not an influencer. I'm not an entertainer. So hopefully you'll get a chance to see this. And if it's something you can use, if you think I can be of help, holler. I'll be glad to at least sit down and chat with you, and then we can continue on whether you want to spend money with me or not, or maybe we solve through the first shot, we solve your problem. Who knows? Anyway, Victor Vogel, the website's victorvogel.com. It's not fancy. The first page is, here's what I do. If you want to reach me, here's how you reach me. There's a calendar on there. It says when I'm busy and when I'm not. So you can take a look at that and schedule the date, and I'll try to get back to you as fast as I can. You have a good day. I wish you a lot of luck in leadership.